r/AskReddit. What's the scariest space fact or mystery in your opinion? Astronomer here. There are a lot of things that are not really likely to happen anytime soon or affect your life on Earth much. So, if you want something to worry about, may I introduce you to the Carrington event of 1859. Basically, Carrington was a scientist who noticed a flash from a huge cluster of sunspots, which was the biggest coronal mass ejection from the sun ever recorded, aka a ton of material ejected from the sun at high speeds. It hit Earth within a day. Aurora were seen as far south as Hawaii. Wires on telephone poles burst into flame, and telegraph operators even reported contacting each other when not connected. If a similar event were to strike Earth today, it would cause billions of dollars in damage, because blown transformers are super hard to replace, and a lot of satellites wouldn't be able to handle it, and it goes without saying you'd have a serious radio blackout for a bit, until it ended on a ton of essential frequencies. The crazy thing about the Carrington event though is we really have no idea how often such events happen. But we do know that in 2012 there was a Carrington-level solar flare that barely missed Earth. Can you please not spoil season 4 of 2020? Edit. For those making next in 2020 jokes, this is not super likely this year. We do know these biggest flares happen during solar maximum. The sun has an 11-year cycle of sunspots and the period with the most is solar maximum. We are just coming out of minimum, so the next maximum would be 2025 or 2026. Rogue planets. Planets that do not follow any given orbit. They may have been in an orbit at one time, but now they refuse to play by the rules. They were most likely knocked out of their orbit by another body, and now they are set on doing the same. Astronomer here. Fun fact, back in the 90s searching for rogue planets was huge, because some wondered if dark matter could just be a bunch of rogue planets between the galaxies or similar. They were called matches. The searches involved looking for small amounts of gravitational lensing they would cause with the satellite galaxies of the Milky Way, and they found some excitement. But then they never found anywhere near enough to explain the effects of dark matter that we see in the galaxy. As a result, we still don't know what dark matter is beyond a strange particle, but we do actually know the number of rogue planets out there surprisingly well. The sheer distance between things. It's scary and somewhat depressing. It often blows my mind when I look up at two stars that look super close together and realize they are probably just as far apart from each other as they are to us. When you look up at the night sky, in any urban areas or those with sufficient light pollution, the stars you see, think the constellations and other bright stars, with the exception of the super bright blue A-type stars, they are usually no further than 500 light years away. The biggest, brightest, non-A-type star in our typical night sky is also one of the biggest discovered in our galaxy, Betelgeuse. At 541 light years from Earth, is it the furthest star in the Orion constellation. Those A-types I mentioned can be seen to about 2000 light years away. Vacuum decay is one of the scariest concepts to me. We don't know if it exists, and we won't know until it's too late. On the other hand, you'll never know. You'll just blink out of existence one day. So nothing to worry about. Either way, nothing really matters. Yeah, but things matter to you right now. Make the most of it and spread the love. Here's one closer to home. The Kessler effect is the theory that a single destructive event in low Earth orbit could create a cascade where satellites break up into tiny fragments, taking out other satellites, breaking up into smaller fragments, and so on, until the Earth is completely surrounded by a massive cloud of tiny flying death shrapnel, which would make leaving this planet almost impossible. If you look up how much space debris there is already up there, and how many satellites currently orbit, plus the continued growth of the commercial space industry, I think about it a lot. The Boots Void. An area of space where there should be 50,000 or so galaxies, compared to other areas of the same size, but there's only about 60. could just be empty space for some unknown reason, or it could be an ever-expanding intergalactic empire using Dyson spheres. Also, I think it appears to be growing, but that could just be galaxies moving away from the void. The Great Attractor. A thing that affects the motion of galaxies for hundreds of millions of light years. It's thought to just be a bigger bunch of galaxies. I went to Google to see if there was a formal name for a cluster of galaxies. Supercluster was what I got. Awesome. I'm just gonna assume they call a cluster of superclusters a super duper cluster, and I'm not gonna go look it up and be proven wrong. Super duper cluster. I like it. I was going to mention this, but while researching some specifics on it, I found that subsequent studies discovered the Great Attractor is not what we originally thought. One study found that the Great Attractor is 1/10 the mass originally attributed to it. Another study found that the Milky Way is actually being pulled towards a massive galactic cluster that lies beyond the Great Attractor region. The Greater Attractor. This visual that either shows how slow light speed is, or how vast space is, depending on which way you look at it. I've seen videos showing the scale of the universe before, but this one really hit home for some reason. The speed of light, the fastest speed possible, looks painfully slow when you look at it in the context of even a fraction of our solar system. We are stuck here, aren't we? Some stars are even bigger than the distance between Mars and us. Imagine. It takes light some time to travel the object producing it. It's crazy. Even crazier is that the photons hitting Earth today are likely hundreds of thousands of years old. It takes them a very long time to make it out of the sun while bumping into shit. Mobile black holes. Say one heading straight towards us was discovered. We'd be completely ducked, right? Very little we could do. To put it in perspective, it's exactly the kind of thing we'll never know about. Because if there was one heading straight toward us, we would be so unequivocally ducked. The absolute best case scenario is to just engage in global information suppression and murder anyone who finds out, so that the rest of the population don't descend into whatever chaos, realizing we are all going to die, and there's nothing that can be done to stop it, would occur. I think the only thing we could do is literally move the planet and/or solar system out of its way. That's the most realistic thing we could do. It might be possible to move the entire solar system using a stellar engine. Well, that would take a long time of research and production. Let's hope that black hole won't be coming in the next 100 years or more. I can't accept the fact that there is no end in space. But if there is indeed an end, then what's beyond it? I'm stuck in absurdity. At the end, there is either infinity or nothingness, and what the hell is my little brain supposed to do with that shit? I know, right? Our brains have no way to comprehend it. Like, I try to, but my brain is like, nah. I think the even harder thing to comprehend is the theory that there is no beginning to time. It's just always been. We have been conditioned to believe from birth, even regarding our very own personal lives, that there has always been a first anything, even when it comes to infinity. We all know that pi starts at 3. So there is no first thing that has ever happened in existence. Think about that. Even if it comforts you to know that there was no beginning to time, it's not exactly possible to comprehend. Gamma ray bursts. We could be hit by one of these with very little warning, and if it was reasonably close, in universal terms anyway, could wipe us out rapidly, or cause a ton of damage. Dark matter/dark energy. The fact that about 95% of the universe is made up of matter we can't see or detect is pretty unsettling to think about. Also, while not a fact per se, I like to think that perhaps the answer to the Fermi paradox is that there are billions of advanced alien life forms out there, but they are physically unable to reach us due to technological limitations. Perhaps interstellar transport is only theoretical, and any aliens capable of reaching us are unable to do so in an acceptable length of time. Proxima Centauri may take 25 years for unmanned spacecraft to reach us going 20% the speed of light, but perhaps it's impossible to transport actual life at these speeds without dying, so advanced civilizations have realized the futility of trying to contact other species and have simply given up. What was before the Big Bang? I think it is just impossible for a human to comprehend pure nothing or infinity. I myself had a stroke at age 9 due to a ruptured vertebral artery and lost a third of my visual field. I can confirm that it is not black. A good analogy is it is like what you see behind your head. On the other hand, infinity is so large that if you spent your whole life writing a 1 then zeros on paper, that insane number would still be 0% of infinity. I just think there is no way to fully understand the universe and there never will be. This is why even ancient societies explain things with gods, because they didn't understand how the reality we live in started, and I don't think we ever will. Since time began at the Big Bang, the term before is meaningless. But before that, I hate the concept of time-space irrelevancy. Like sure, there technically wasn't, but there also technically was. Just because there was nothing for reference doesn't mean there was nothing. Somebody much smarter is bound to come around and correct me, but I've just accepted that time-space has no beginning. I think everything is terrifying about space, and I ducking love it. But one thing it scare me a lot, it's if space is infinite. Imagine what kind of gigantic monster can be in there. My favorite debate I've ever had with a friend is about gigantic space monsters. I argued that, since space is infinite, and we don't understand much about it, that there's a good chance that there's a gigantic space monster that's just a massive head that eats planets to live. We went back and forth for like 15 minutes. But we do know a lot about physics. I think you could apply physics to determine if a massive spacefaring organism existed. Off the top of my head I'd say no, nutrients are too sparse in space to sustain any living creature. But it's fun to speculate. I mean, the concept of life is entirely based on Earth examples, so arguing what could and couldn't be based on Earth physics and Earth biology is pretty pointless. Since the universe is expanding, and stars and galaxies are moving away from each other, it's possible that civilizations that spring up in the far future with lonely stars will see an empty sky. Their civilizations will grow and learn, but they will never know the universe that once was. We live in a spectacular time period where we can actually look back in time and see the early universe. Future civilizations won't have that luxury. They'll believe that the universe is, and always was, dark, dead, and empty, aside from their small island of light. With that in mind, you have to wonder what stellar phenomena may have populated the universe billions of years ago, but are now too far away for us to ever detect. There is no guarantee that the universe won't end in the next 10 seconds. Update, it didn't. First, we are the only intelligent beings in the entire universe. Second, we aren't the only intelligent beings in the entire universe. Both are equally terrifying, yet one of them is true. And we don't even know which one that is. Third, we weren't the only intelligent beings in the entire universe, but we are now. Something killed them all, and we don't know what or how. Maybe they annihilated themselves. Maybe something or someone wiped them all out? We don't know. All we know is that we are alone now.